What's up, everyone? I'm Grant Cohn. This is Mondays with Vish, the co-star, Vish Kumaran. We're going to be talking a lot about the Niners today, but before we get into what we need to talk about, we're going to go for like 90 minutes. Vish has an announcement to make. And before Vish makes his announcement, I want everyone who's watching to subscribe to Vish's YouTube channel. He just started it. It's about a week old, and the link is in the description of this video. Vish, tell people what they need to know.
So as Grant said, thank you for telling us, Grant. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Blake and Vish Sports. It's in the description. We'll be posting a few videos every day. Jason, I appreciate your subscription. And then number two, we got a couple of nice things coming up. So this Wednesday, Blake and I will be going live again, and we're going to have a special guest this Friday, a San Francisco 49ers player. I'll tweet about it a bit more. I hope to see you guys all there when we go live on Friday. We have a special guest, and please
creating suspense. You're not going to say who it is.
No, not yet.
Ooh, I know who it is, but I'm not going to say. But I know who it is.
A couple things need to still get confirmed, but we're going to have a special guest. So please do join when we go live this Friday. And we're also going to get Grant on there soon, time permitting. And hopefully we can talk to Grant about more.
But I'm not the special guest he's talking about. He got a real heavy hitter. Theoretically, I'm not going to say who it is, though. But tune in on Friday. It's going to be a big deal. I'm excited.
All right. Are you ready to go?
Big start for Vish Kumaran in the game. Yeah. So, Vish, let's do it this way. I build this as projecting the future of the 49ers. Let's talk the future of this season, and then we'll get into the quarterback position. Because the future of this season, I already know we disagree. So let's talk about that right now. Where do you see this season going?
I see this. So the way I see the 49ers is I see one of the best coach teams in the NFL just lacking talent, and that lacking talent because of injuries. And
they're a lot like the Patriots.
Right. And that's who I was going to compare them to. Yeah. I think we talked about this on the phone call yesterday. Like Belichick and McDaniels every week seem to install this great game plan, and it just feels like they lose because of execution errors. And when they do execute, they come up with wins like yesterday against the Ravens. The same way the Niners, like I thought yesterday, Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh's game plans were right on. Like we can nitpick at certain play calls, but I don't like nitpicking at certain play calls because to me there's too much nuance there.
Fair enough.
We got to nitpick at the bigger picture game plan. Was their plan something that seemed plausible for them to win that game? And I say absolutely. I thought the plan both of them had was right on, and I thought they had every chance to win that game. So I think we're going to see that continue. I have no misgivings about how good Kyle Shanahan and how good Robert Saleh are going to be. I think they're going to be as good as any coaches in the NFL. My big question is the quarterback position and just injuries on the whole and the offensive line. I think this team is going to be very up and down like they've been just all season, which means we're going to get one game where the coaching looks great and the players execute, and we're going to be like, yes, they can make this run. And then the very next game, they're going to let you down and be like, or not let you down, but more just play because of the younger inexperienced players that they have kind of slow down and have a rough game. And we're going to say, well, they're done. And then they'll reappear again, and then they'll go. And I think they'll probably end somewhere around 8-8 and 7-9, which to me would be a phenomenal job done by the coaches to get this team there.
All right, let's argue a little bit. What you said is right on. I think that definitely applies to the offense. They've got a backup quarterback in there who's still very inexperienced. His weapons are in and out. You never really know who's going to be playing on offense any given week. The offensive line is terrible. The quarterback can't move. It's going to be inconsistent. The defense, though, I think the defense is legit. It's not a top 5 defense in the NFL, but I think it is a top 10 defense. And I think it's going to continue to play extremely hard. It's going to execute whatever Robert Saleh is calling. His game plans are going to be on point. I think that defense is going to be legit. What we saw in Seattle and against the Packers, I think was just an exhausted defense. So I think coming off the bye, they're going to be consistent. If not great, they'll be consistently very good. So that's a start. And then I keep coming back to if they can possibly get their running game back, which is personnel related, in my opinion. If they could get Deebo Samuel back in particular, now they need Raheem Mostert back more than ever.
Right.
Then then they get the identity of their team back. Then they get their running game. Then their defense doesn't have to play as much. And then there's just so much less that Nick Mullens has to do. You sort of go back to what the team looked like last year minus Kittle. But I don't know if we're ever actually going to see that. I mean, my pie in the sky optimistic scenario depends on Mostert and Debo coming back, being great right away, and pretty much everyone else staying healthy.
So I think everything that you say is the most optimistic way to look at the situation.
Yeah.
And that's if everything goes right. I have a couple of problems even with that outlook, because the way I see it is that with the way they're playing defense and stuff, I'm not sure if their defense can play the way they played yesterday every game, just because of the amount of younger, inexperienced players they played. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to have games, and I know everybody points it out, but Javon Kinlaw is not going to play the way he played yesterday in every game left this season. And they need him to play like that, right?
True.
And you're going to have a couple of rough games. Tarvarius Moore will make a couple of mistakes. Marcel Harris is going to make a few mistakes. There's going to be mistakes there where it's not Saleh's fault. Maybe the player, it's not really his fault because he just needs more time. He needs more growth. And then the other thing with the defense is I don't know how they're going to create turnovers. And I think this offense, especially with Nick Mullens at quarterback, needs the defense to be creating 1 to 2 turnovers a game.
How about that new free safety, though? Look,
I mean, if he can inadvertently fall down and elbow a ball out every game, then God bless.
That was in the scouting report. Inadvertently falls down, elbows ball.
Absolutely.
Look, I want to talk about this defense because I was really inspired. And we're going to talk about Saleh later. We're going to get into the whole thing. But moving Tarvarius Moore into the starting lineup is not a bad thing from what I've seen. So far, it doesn't hurt him. In fact, it might help him. 2, moving Marcel Harris to linebacker, I thought was a stroke of genius. I really like that move. To me, he's a lot like Quan Alexander. He's not that much smaller than Quan Alexander. They have similar playing styles, and I think he makes a bigger impact than Azeez Al-Shaair. I thought it was genius. I don't know. Genius is a little strong.
I agree. I thought it was a great move.
Yeah.
And they need someone on this defense who's a little reckless. Quan Alexander, when he first came, was very reckless. And Marcel Harris brings that level of recklessness. He's a really good player. I think a really good backup player. He's not by any means a great starting safety. I think he's one of the more unfairly criticized players on the 49ers, if you will, because I feel like when he makes a mistake, everybody's like, see, Marcel Harris busted.
It's true. It's true. The problem is the way the Niners use their safeties, he has to play free safety a lot because Jimmy Ward is in coverage and he can't. I mean, we saw him. He'll get a little.
His game is not to play center field. They got to get him near the line of scrimmage, and I love the dime look, get more speed on the field. I think it's great because I think if there's anything Greenlaw struggles with, it's coverage. He's not great in coverage. He's fine. And so I thought all of those things were the right moves. But again, it comes for me, Kyle Shanahan talked about it yesterday. Is this offense not going to turn the football over? And the most disconcerting thing for me with the Nick Mullens experience so far this year, because we got to the highest of highs, right? Where he even fooled me after the Giants came. I was like, whoa. Someone's going to trade something for this guy. Like, whoa, he improved so much. And then we got to the lowest of lows in Philly. And then I think he's kind of evened out as the type of quarterback he is, where he's very limited physically, but under the correct and specific circumstances, he can be a good player. He can be a fine player, right?
You can win with him. That's all I've ever said.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think the complexity to this entire thing is that he keeps putting the ball in harm's way.
Yes.
And that's a big problem. And we can say, Jimmy put the ball in harm's way last year. Absolutely he did. But Jimmy also made a couple more plays last year that Mullens is not going to make.
Okay.
And that's what's bothering me. Like yesterday, he threw a easy pick. Malcolm Jenkins dropped it. He threw 2 picks, and then he threw one right into Demario Davis's bedbasket that Kendrick Bourne just absolutely sunned him and just grabbed that ball away from him. So if he can keep the ball, I think the biggest contingency to your optimism is, can Nick Mullens protect the football?
Okay, that's a great point. Let me address it. It's a great point. The reason I think that I was so hard on Jimmy on his picks last year was because he didn't have to take chances. He had the number 1 run game, the number 1 defense. He was a caretaker. I mean, not that he was no better than a caretaker. That's what was required. And there were times when it was like, dude, you didn't need to do that.
Right.
With Nick in these last couple of weeks, He's not a caretaker. There's no run game. He has to drop back and throw it down the field. And that's what's going to happen when you're an undrafted free agent backup and your offensive line isn't that great. I think that was expected, those picks yesterday. If Deebo Samuel and Raheem Mostert come back and the run game works and he's still putting the ball in harm's way, then they got a big problem. But I'm gonna let him slide a little bit.
Okay,
and say enough. The offense was on his shoulders in this game, and it's like, good luck, dude.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So we can wait for that evaluation. My other thing is, I think this offensive line generally just struggles in pass pro. And I think the way the offense is going to work, they're not going to be buzzsawing teams anymore down the stretch. They're going to play in tight ball games. The defense is going to play well, and they're going to play in tight, grinded out ball games, which means that there's going to be moments where you're going to ask Nick Mullens to drop back. And there's two problems, right? This offensive line issue, it's a two-person problem, right? First, the offensive line is struggling just in straight drop-back pass pro. The interior O-line with all these changes, right? Brunskill isn't fully comfortable at center. Compton, McKivitz, they're not ready to play. Like, Compton is, I don't think, a very good player, and I don't think McKivitz is ready to play. McGlinchey is fine, but he also has moments that really stand out. Like, wow, the captain of your team, starting right tackle, got basically bulldozed by a nickel who's 190 pounds. It's a bad look. It's a really bad look.
Yeah.
You have those things. And the bigger problem is that Nick Mullens just physically cannot operate when there's pressure around him. So it's like, even when he tries to throw the football away when there's people around him, that ball pops straight in the air and it's up for grabs and it's scary.
Yep.
And
it
so
is scary.
It's a two-person problem right here. And that's what's really concerning to me, because I feel like if you're the Cardinals or if you're the Bills or if you're the Rams, you're probably thinking, if I blitz the heck out of this defense, Kyle might gash me for a couple of plays, or excuse me, this offense. Kyle might gash me for a couple of big runs, but I'm going to probably win the bigger picture battle here just because I don't trust that they can pick up the blitz. Right. Like, I don't trust that they can make the correct line calls, whoever's making them. I don't think they can make the correct adjustment there. And then I don't think they have the quarterback, just because of what his physical skill set is, to operate under that blitz. And so the defense can probably grind you, and you might be stuck in a 2017 ball game against the Cardinals or the Bills. But they got quarterbacks that in those ball games and there's nothing happening and the defense is playing so sound that can make a couple of plays that flip a game. So that's where my concern is. I think if the schedule was easier, I'd be in the same page as you, because the coaching is that good. I just think the schedule is what makes me a little pessimistic about.
Yeah, I'm looking at it this way. We're going to get to these questions real quick, and we're going to end this topic right now. If the Niners can get back to having a running back who averages 5.5 to 6 yards a carry, plus this playmaker in Deebo Samuel, who is just nightmare on defenses, if they can get those elements back in their offense, I'm not betting against them. To have that defense and that running game, I know Nick Mullens has his limitations, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo has his limitations too. And if you can give a quarterback all of that, I'm curious to see, because I don't really respect the Rams, even though they won yesterday. I really don't. The Niners are going to have 2 weeks to prepare. We can talk about Shanahan and having extra time to prepare later. But they have 2 weeks to prepare their defense. Saleh seems to do well with extra time. And the Rams are going to be coming off a game on the East Coast, a Monday nighter. I think they're set up to win the next game, but I guess we'll see. If they lose that game, it's really, really over. We should move on and answer a couple questions and then talk about the quarterbacks, because that's why everyone's here. Cruz, you said Sherman at free safety like Woodson late in his career, Moore at strong safety, Ward at nickel. I don't like the idea of Sherman at free safety. I don't think he can cover enough ground. I don't think he's that kind of hitter. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think to play free safety in this system, even though they've gone to becoming more of a split safety defense, you need to have more fluid hips, right? That's the problem that happens to That's the problem with Marcel Harris when he's stuck in deep zone, is that he doesn't change direction as fluidly as Moore or Ward or Tart. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something Sherman really struggles with, especially with all the beating he's taken with his legs. I think maybe in a specific defense, he might be a free safety type, but I don't.
Maybe. Probably not this one.
No, I don't think this is the one.
No. Next question from Kyler V. With Solomon Thomas probably not having any value, do you think the Niners re-sign him to a small deal for another year or so? Vish?
Yeah, I think they probably do. I don't see what the value of Solomon Thomas generally is, given how Street had one pass rush yesterday that was about as good as any pass rush in Solomon Thomas's career. I think Gibbons has shown a lot, and Kinlaw is really talented, and DJ Jones is probably going to get a good contract somewhere. So, but I think you can draft, right, and you can draft another DJ Jones type in the 4th to 5th to 6th round. So I don't see the value, but I do think that they will probably keep Solomon Thomas. But you know what? Who knows if Solomon Thomas comes back? You know, I hate to be the person to say it, but man, they signed Ronald Blair with the expectations that he would help alleviate some of the lack of depth that they lost last year with the defensive line, and how much it hurt them to have Armstead, Bosa, and Buckner playing so much for the last 5-6 games in the season. Well, Ronald Blair, it seems like he's not even going to play this season. So I don't know what the details are with the ACL. I don't know what the details are with Solomon Thomas's ACL, but I think they probably will get him for a 1-year cheap contract, but I don't think they should.
I don't think he's an NFL player, Vish. I hate to be harsh, but from everything I've seen, every time he got a lot of playing time the first 3 years of his career. And every time he went out and someone else came in, they were better.
Right.
Kentavious Street's better. I thought Julian Taylor was better than him, and he's out of the league. If the Niners don't re-sign him, another team might sign him. They might give him a 1-year deal, but I don't think he's gonna work out. And it's not because he doesn't try. It's not because he doesn't mean well. He's just not an NFL player.
I agree. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I agree that they probably shouldn't re-sign him. I don't know if he's even a fit for this defense, because his best option is to play inside. And I mean, it clearly shows that you need guys who are 320 pounds playing inside on this defense, because they need to hold their ground, right, with the wide 9 and all of that. And I think that's why you like Julian Taylor more, because Julian Taylor is physically very strong.
Yes.
He's able to hold his ground, and Solomon Thomas can't. I think Solomon Thomas's best bet is go find a 3-4 defense, go latch on there, get yourself healthy, and you could maybe be a good 3-4 defensive end.
I disagree. No, I mean, I think he needs to be in a 3-4. But even at D end, I mean, he's light. He's like 280 tops, and you can run at that guy. I think if you had him on your team and you had to play him and you were running like a Vic Fangio style defense, the one place I would try him that he might have success is like a Paris Harrelson role. Like stand up, play strong side, outside linebacker, set the edge, and then when it's time to, when it's time to rush the quarterback, get off the field, bring in all.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I like the sound of that. Well, I hope he gets help.
A few years ago, and it made sense. It's like, yeah, he actually would be a big physical edge setter.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope he gets healthy, and I hope whatever role he finds, it's a good one, and I hope he's successful, honestly, because he's been through a lot, and
he's so earnest. It's so clear that he's trying to do everything he can to make good on the Niners' investment. It's just he doesn't. It's just they picked the wrong guy. It's not his fault. Right. Just like it wasn't Alex Smith's fault that that he's not Aaron Rodgers. Speaking of quarterbacks, I think we should start to talk about.
Sure.
Let's talk about the future of this position. I mean, it's not Nick Mullens. It's not Jimmy Garoppolo. Is it Jimmy Garoppolo? It's not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Is it Jimmy Garoppolo in the sense that I think we all kind of have a feel of what Garoppolo is, and that's not the expectation of this organization, this coach, this GM. So I don't think it's I don't think it is Jimmy Garoppolo from that standpoint.
There's no quarterback on this team who has played well enough to stake claim of being the franchise quarterback of this team. They just haven't. None of them are proven enough, successful enough. So we've had this discussion before, but where is this evolving? Like they now have the 13th pick in the draft, which means they're right on the cusp of getting Kyle Trask, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance,
Mac Jones.
There are new quarterbacks available on the trade market.
Okay, so let's agree on one thing, right? Two guys are totally out of the question. Fields and Lawrence, I think, barring any catastrophic changes to the way the draft is looked at and all of that, I think we can start to say that, you know what, Fields and Lawrence are probably going 1-2. People have been saying they were going to go 1-2 since their high school days. So I guess we can just rule those two out, right?
Yep. I don't like Fields anyway. Not
so
his
then
fault.
you can start talking about, well, is it Zach Wilson? Is it Mac Jones? Is it Kyle Trask? So the way I'm starting to look at the quarterback situation with the 49ers is for the next 10 years, you're going to have I think they're top 8, top 7 type quarterbacks, maybe even higher in a couple years, but I think they're both that special. At the very least, you have 2 top 10 quarterbacks. So when you start
Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, if you don't know at home.
Right.
Not Jared Goff.
Right. No, absolutely not Goff. So when I start to look at people like Kyle Trask and Mac Jones, well, I ask myself, is their ceiling to just be the 3rd best quarterback in our division? Right.
Yeah.
Is the best case scenario that Mac Jones within this system is the 3rd best quarterback in the system and is the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL? And just observing him, I've only watched a couple games of him, but just looking at his physical skill set and comparing it to Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, I would tend to say yes. And to me, that's not good enough. That isn't good enough, which is where I think I'm more of a fan of Zach Wilson because I think he throws it well enough where you can say, okay, maybe he has the opportunity to compete and be as good as Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, but I don't know. And that's why
he's not going to be as good as Kyler Murray. Let's just say that.
Right. I like Zach Wilson.
No.
Go ahead.
I like Zach Wilson, but no, he ain't going to be Kyler Murray. Sorry.
No, absolutely not.
That's the most athletic player in the NFL.
1-1.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always kind of liked the veteran route because at least with Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford, you can approximate that in this system, their play is going to be close enough to Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson when you start ranking quarterbacks where you're not falling off that far. And then you're hoping the superior coaching of Shanahan and Robert Saleh with this defense can take you the extra little step where quarterback talent has you down a little bit.
Allow me to retort real quick. You are not going to get a quarterback nearly as talented as Kyler Murray in the next 10. It's going to be really hard.
No.
And if you're paying more than the Cardinals are paying for their quarterback and he's not as good, you're not going to be as good as the Cardinals.
No.
You're just not. So if you can't compete with Kyler Murray, maybe you go cheaper at the position and load up your team elsewhere because you're just not going to have a better quarterback than the Cardinals the next 10. It's not going to happen.
But they were hypothetically right. We talked about how they did the invert cheap on last week's show where Jimmy was kind of highly paid at a reasonable deal, but the rest of the roster was so cheap across the board that they optimized the entire thing rather than doing quarterback expensive roster. But it was the same deal. And Russell Wilson last year was an inch away from winning this division with a wildly inferior roster, right? So
and look at him now. Look at the Seahawks now.
Until you get a quarterback that can stand up and play at the level of those two guys, where every year, as good as your team is, this division is going to hold you back because those two quarterbacks are that good.
All right. Well, okay. All right. Fair enough. Let me throw out 2 names because we haven't talked about Kyle Trask much. We've talked a lot about Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence, who has no chance of ever coming to the Niners. Kyle Trask is a real possibility, and I got to say I prefer him to Mac Jones. When I look at Kyle Trask, I see a slower Carson Wentz.
Yeah, with less arm talent.
With a little less, and less physically gifted Carson Wentz.
I mean, I think Kyle Trask being a very big guy wearing number 11 kind of lends you to think that way, right? He's a really big guy.
I mean, the throwing motion is a little similar. Their setup's a little similar, but that's pretty much where it starts and ends, I would have to say.
And he has the pro style experience and all of that.
True. And that's important because a guy like Zach Wilson, I don't know if he can start week 1 for the 49ers. I think Kyle Trask could. And that's not why you draft a quarterback, clearly. It's just a fact.
Right. Yeah. But to me, when it comes down to Kyle Trask, and maybe I'm being pessimistic in the sense that my expectation of what a quarterback should be at this point is so ridiculously high because I really want the Niners to have that quarterback where, like, if you're a Cardinals fan, no matter what the next 10 years, you're going to be able to put your chest up and say, we have that guy. Nobody else has that guy, and the Niners can say that about George Kittle and I guess now Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. But we've never in my lifetime ever been able to say, well, we have that quarterback. Like we got to say it for like maybe 8 months with Colin Kaepernick. Like, dang, we got it. Or like 8 months with Jimmy Garoppolo, but it didn't sustain the way we wanted it to sustain. So, and when I look at Kyle Trask and I like just his physical ability, like, I just don't think that I think his physical ability also ceilings out at a certain point where you can take a first round guy and maybe Shanahan can do magic with him. But at some point, I think to really take advantage of where the rules of the NFL are going and all of that, I just want maybe I'm being a little delusional, a little where
No,
I
you're
just
being
want
a fan. You want to watch greatness. I get it,
right,
man. You don't want to watch Kyle Trask for 10 years. That's scary. It's a scary
right,
thought because that guy has B plus written all over him, really.
right.
But no, what I want to say real quick, the way I look at it, and I think we can segue into the next topic about drafting quarterbacks. The way I look at it is just take the best quarterback available with your first round pick. He doesn't have to be the future. He doesn't have to be a 10-year starter. You don't have to say, are we going to give him a second contract? Just say he's the best guy we can get now and take the approach that you're going to draft a quarterback every single year until you get it right, because that was Bill Walsh's philosophy. And if he were alive, I have to think that one of the chief things he would say to Kyle Shanahan is, dude, why haven't you drafted a quarterback since C.J. Beathard in 2017?
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Something New England does every year, right? They've been doing it since they had a prime Tom Brady, trying to develop a guy in their system.
Yep. Mark real quick says, do you really want to put money towards a quarterback knowing the cap will be lower next year and also having so many free agents? Yeah, man, it's tough.
That's why this conversation has so many layers to it, right? Because ideally, like if I'm sure if you polled Kyle Shanahan, he would say, if I could go get Matthew Stafford tomorrow, he's like, absolutely. But now with all the COVID situation and all of that, it's like, do I want his contract, which is slightly better than Jimmy's and slightly,
but still tough in a COVID year. Yeah, still tough.
Especially with Ronnie Stanley getting the deal he got, David Bakhtiari getting that deal they got, and you can't franchise Trent Williams. You have to pay Fred Warner. So there's so much nuance to this entire conversation.
And again, like you can draft, say Kyle Trask is the best quarterback available when the Niners pick if they have the 15th pick. And then you know what? Say he doesn't work out and they draft a quarterback the year after and they get someone way better than Kyle Trask. Well, then they end up like the Cardinals. Like you just keep doing it until you get the right guy. Are the Cardinals screwed because they drafted Josh Rosen? No. What they would have been screwed is if they hadn't drafted Kyler Murray because they had Josh Rosen. I mean, that was a great move.
Right. So here's where I push back on. I do think that you should draft a quarterback every year, but here's where I push back on. Well, if we don't get it right this year, we can get it right next year. I don't think you got to get it right this year. Whoever it is, got to get it right this year. Brandon Ayuk is looking like he's going to be a star. Deebo Samuel is special. George Kittle is phenomenal. You're probably going to have Jordan Reed for one more year. With all those things, you cannot, and Kyle Shanahan is a play caller, you cannot waste this trying to solidify
Josh Rosen. What I'm saying is I expect Kyle Trask would actually be very good on the 49ers. Would he be great? I don't know. But on handing off to Mostert and Debo and throwing to Debo and Ayuk and Kittle, it's like you can't miss. Now, could they do better in a couple of years? Maybe. Should they get the quarterback if they can do better in a couple of years? Absolutely. But if they think, you definitely don't want to draft a straight up bust in the first round. I just think that any of these quarterbacks would actually be pretty good on the 49ers or better than pretty good. They'd be good and they'd be cheap. And I think that's
maybe their numbers would be good. But here's the thing. Last year, Kyler Murray was a rookie, right? So their division with the Rams kind of figuring things out salary-wise, I think the Rams are going to consistently be a 7 to 10 win team for the foreseeable future. I think their defense has enough talent and McVay's a good enough coach where they're just always going to be kind of around 500.
And Jared Goff is just way too overpaid and he'll just
Goff is what's holding them back, I think, from being the top tier team. Well, I think that now with Kyler Murray being as good as he is, and I think the Cardinals are going to go for whatever happens this year, I think they're going to be a better roster next year because they're still going to have a rookie deal, Kyler Murray, and they're going to load up.
Also, free agents are going to flock to Arizona. Guys are going to love to play with him. Oh,
absolutely.
He's like Steph Curry, you know?
Absolutely. And then I think Seattle, Russell Wilson's going through a little bit of a turnover issue there, but I think he's good enough and the team is good enough and they have a good enough culture where they're always going to be in the conversation to win the NFC West.
Yeah.
So then do you think that what they did last year, and if Kyle Trask can be maybe 80% of what Garoppolo was last year, is that good enough to win this division?
Who's to say he can't be more than that? I mean, what I see from Kyle Trask is a guy who can throw downfield. Let's start there. Can he throw all the shorter stuff too? I think so. He's a big guy, but I think he can throw the slants and the shorter stuff as well. If he can actually hit the post down the middle, maybe he actually increases the limit. I don't look at Kyle Trask as a physical downgrade. I think he's a physical upgrade from Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, he doesn't have the same seasoning and experience, but I'm curious to see what Kyle Shanahan can do. He's got a great training wheels offense when he wants to have it. I think he can really make some defined reads from Kyle Trask. You put him in a run-first offense. I don't know. I feel like you put him on, you send him to Chicago, he'll fail. But you send him here, it's the best spot for him.
This is quarterback heaven. We could say that about any quarterback. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of layers to this conversation. I think there's too much projection, especially right now when Kyle Trask is such an unknown. But I think generally this is going to be one of the most interesting things about this offseason in the 49ers. It's going to be really interesting to talk about and debate and try and understand how they're going to move on with this quarterback position, what they're going to do. And I'm hoping that whatever they do, it ends up being the correct move. We'll see.
Now, I wanted to talk next about Carson Wentz because there's some very juicy details coming out from Mike Silver, who's in the know, saying it really seems like the Eagles are, I don't know, displeased with Carson Wentz or something. But before we go there, I'd like to answer a question from Waruna Pereira because this is a topic we wanted to do anyway. So let's just go to it and we'll save Wentz for next. For it's coming up.
Sure.
So don't touch that dial. But Waruna says, what is wrong with special teams? They did cost us games this year. There's a lot to talk about with special teams. Vish, where do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think the thing with the Niners special teams is that they've kind of neglected it in the sense that they say, returners, just make sure you catch that punt and don't ruin it. Kick returners, do this thing and get us the ball at the 25. Yeah. Punter, Wishnowski, don't switch field position, but when we punt from the 40, just down it at the 15, down it at the 11, down it at 10, right? So they're a very conservative special teams, right?
Yes, they are.
Fakes. There's nothing creative. It's just don't lose us the game, special teams.
And they are, and yet they still are.
Right, because I think teams are starting to realize that the Niners don't really want to return kicks. It feels like they're kicking them shorter and forcing them to
Yes, they are. Good observation.
I think the kickoff coverage generally isn't very good. And Mitch Wishnowski is horrible at kicking off. He's horrible at it. He cannot kick touchbacks in the dome. That's a problem. Yep. He doesn't look natural kicking the ball. Like he kind of does a Frankenstein where his knee kind of buckles and he's like just kind of muscling it out there rather than if you watch Robbie Gould strike a ball, it's clean. It doesn't
because he grew up playing rugby. There's no place kicking in rugby. Is there? I don't know.
Right. I don't know. There's punting. There's
punting. There's punting. Exactly. Yeah.
It's not soccer. He's not a soccer style kicker.
Right.
And so he's a horrible kickoff specialist, which to me is a real big problem. And then as a punter, he's a fine punter if he's punting at the 35, if he's punting at the 40. If you have to punt at the 20, he oftentimes gives the opposing offense way too good field position. And where he wasn't a problem last year is that the Niners were one of the number one, I think they were number one or number two in having the least amount of 3-and-outs. And Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever we want to nitpick and analyze about him, he was excellent on third down last year.
He was the best third down quarterback in the league. They had the number one run game. They controlled the game on offense. They didn't have very many,
So they were able to protect their special teams and protect Wishnowski. This year, what we're seeing is that they're punting more. They're not a very good third down offense in general, whoever the quarterback is.
Can't protect.
And what's really bothering me is I feel like 1 out of every 5 punts is a shank. And it doesn't show up on the yardage because he's a really lucky bounce guy where he punts it 30 yards and then the ball bounces another 10 yards. And you can see the opposing team looking around like, how? He just shaked the heck out of that.
Hey, we need to roast Mitch Wishnowski real quick or Richard Hightower because people don't remember. Look, Mitch Wishnowski, they drafted him in the 4th round. Okay.
Who did they draft him over?
They took him ahead of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who almost single-handedly shut down the Niners offense yesterday. They took him in the 4th round. He was 27 years old. Okay. A punter who did his punting in Utah, 5,000 feet over sea level, where his average at home was 7 yards longer than his average on the road. That's the guy they took in the 4th round. And then to justify it, Richard Hightower, the special teams coordinator, comes out during training camp, is like, oh man, this guy, he's got like 7 different punts. He's got this one punt, he's got the knuckle punt, and he's got this other punt, and people just, they're not even going to be able to catch it.
Yeah, he said they were going to struggle to catch it, right? He said it's going to improve our turnovers. I haven't seen any of those things. And I know you might say it's an overreaction. Here's my problem. The Niners invested the most in their punter in the NFC West. Michael Dickinson, or Dixon, is it Dickinson or Dixon? Dixon.
Better.
Best punter in the NFL. 5th round pick for Seattle.
Yep.
Johnny Hekker, one of the top 3 or 4 punters in the NFL. Undrafted. Mitch Wishnowsky was a 4th round pick.
Andy Lee.
Okay, he should be as good as those two guys.
Better than Mitch Wishnowsky. Andy Lee is 87 years old, and he still averages like 48 yards a punt.
He's a solid holder.
Oh, he's got that. Yeah, I like that. He does a pretty good job. He's a good holder.
Yeah, especially with all the variance with the snapping. He's done a really good job with that. But when you draft a punter in the 4th round, right, you're hoping it's Shane Leckler. You're hoping it's Andy Lee. You're hoping it's Johnny Hekker. It's Mike Dixon. Yeah. And it's really bothersome that he's just fine. And the fact that he shanks so many punts, I think their special teams on the whole is a problem, but I did want to just touch on him because I don't know if he's living up to the investment, right? If Mitch Wishnowsky was an undrafted punter, we'd just be like, he's fine, whatever. But this was a 4th round pick punter.
Yeah. Took him over Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was not an unknown player. Everyone thought Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was going to be a 2nd round pick, and he fell for like reasons unknown.
Right,
I don't know.
To Florida.
Yes, he did. All right, before we move on to Wentz, I got one more special teams question. Who should be returning punts and kicks, Vish?
Yeah, I think at this point it should be Brandon Ayuk. And so this was actually something we talked about. Well, my man Tico says you can't hit on every kick, Vish. Well, we miss on more punts. Go watch a Rams game and tell me how many punts Johnny Hekker misses compared to how many Wishnowsky misses.
I love how committed Tico is to like disagreeing with us. Like he's in here to keep us honest, and I respect it. That's a full-time job. That is a full-time job because I'm out here spitting hot takes daily. Appreciate you, Tico. Good stuff.
Yeah, you're my man. But here's what I'll say about. I think it should be Brandon Ayuk, and I don't think it's because of the reasons that I think it's just more at this point with the way the 49ers are, getting the ball into Brandon Ayuk's hands has to be number 1 priority. And there's sometimes when the offense, because of offensive line, quarterback, whatever, they're unable to get him the ball as much as they should. Like he looks like a superstar to me, Brandon Ayuk. And so I just think at this point, if you're going to maximize your winning potential at this point, you got to get the ball get Brandon Ayuk one more touch on a punt return, one more touch on a kick return.
It can be the difference between winning and losing.
He's the one guy that can change the game.
Yeah. So if you want, I 100% agree. And there's been so many examples throughout the years of teams playing their best players at punt returner.
Right.
Antonio Brown did it forever. I mean, John
Bryant, his rookie year, they had Roy Williams, Miles Austin, and they basically Des Bryant, right? He didn't know the full offense, and they just wanted to get the ball to Des Bryant's hands, and they had him return punts. I think CeeDee Lamb was returning punts for a little bit for Dallas. I don't know if he still does it. So teams do this. I mean, it's not like he's as much of an injury risk. It's football. He's an injury risk on any given play. You're not increasing the risk by having him return punts or kicks at this point, and you're desperate for this season. I totally understand it maybe next season and stuff when you have all your weapons and you want to protect Brandon Ayuk and stuff. But this season, you got to get the ball into his hands any way possible. Like he needs to get the ball into his hands. And if you can do that by a punt return and a kick return, or maybe in selective positions, hey, this is a big return. Ayuk, go return this punt. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Peterson, after his rookie year, didn't return punts. But anytime the Cardinals needed a big return, they put Peterson back there. Chiefs did it. Tyreek Hill in 2018. Antonio Brown still did it. I mean, the Giants did it with Odell Beckham. Like Odell Beckham has never been a punt returner his entire career, even though he was that in college. But
Deshaun Jackson was a number 1 receiver and a punt returner at the same time. I mean, when did Deshaun Jackson ever get hurt on a punt return? I don't know.
Yeah. Deshaun Jackson did it in Philly for years where anytime they needed a big return, they'd put him back there. And I think it's just a way to kickstart your team. It doesn't have to be every return. It's Brandon Ayuk. You rotate Trent Taylor and Richie James for reasons only God knows already. Why not just add Ayuk to that rotation if you want? And
neither one can catch the ball. I mean, Trent Taylor apparently can, although when he goes for the fair catch and gets away, he doesn't say it loud enough, and someone else anyway. Real quick, Sean Shepard says maybe Mitch does those wacky punts on Madden. I don't even know if he plays Madden. He's from Australia. He probably is playing Rugby League Live by EA Sports.
I mean, who knows?
They're playing FIFA.
I just thought it was funny because, I was also excited because I do really value punting. I do think it's very important. And it's just disappointing that they picked him in the 4th round and he's just fine. You would like him at least to be Michael Dixon or Johnny Hekker, like with that.
Or the guy in New England that was taken after him.
Right. Bailey's fine. He's pretty good.
Yeah. He's decent. All right, let's talk about Wentz. So what happened last night is Michael Silver unloaded on NFL Network and said that I'm trying to tell me if I forget anything. He said that the Eagles are souring. I don't know. He didn't use that phrase, but he said he has poor practice habits.
He basically said that they're not convinced that Wentz is the guy. And they might for a reason. That's the gist.
Exactly. They said he had poor practice habits. He's not as athletic as he used to be, and they might move on from him, even though there's a bunch of dead cap involved with doing so. And as soon as you saw that, you put the little eye emoji on Twitter, and I was like, oh, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the Eagles feel about Carson Wentz. I mean, it seems like they're kind of scapegoating him the way that the Niners might have scapegoated Jimmy Garoppolo. All I know is I saw Carson Wentz in person a month ago, and that guy is a hell of an athlete. And I think the Niners saw that too.
So we know how tough Philly fans are, right? My man Romich pointed it out in the chat. They're a tough fan base. Yeah. They are very difficult on their players. And my problem, and the thing is, let's first, if Mike Silver, the way that report sounded to me, it sounded like it was Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, someone very, very high up in that organization, basically, because when you're giving out details like they question his practice habits, his athleticism is waning, he doesn't check the ball down, predetermined reads, Mike, that's someone basically telling Mike Silver
these are the reasons,
scoop, right?
Yeah.
And it was and he had a scoop on Doug Peterson's not safe either. So that means Peterson's not the guy that's the problem. Yeah. So
they could just start over.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you hear those things, and the reason I put the eye emojis is because our own Grant Cohn, week 4 before the Eagles game, said that the way according to him, right, Grant said the way Kyle talked about Carson Wentz was unlike the way he talks about any other quarterback. He was just gushing. Right?
He wouldn't talk that way about Matt Ryan. No.
He was gushing.
Called him the best player in the league in 2017.
Right.
The best player in the league in 2017. Yeah.
Right. And so my thing with Wentz is that I don't know where I stand on him, right? Because the physical talent, when I talked about physical talent earlier, Wentz is absolutely talented enough to be as good as Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. If you're going to ask me who are the top 5, 6 most talented quarterbacks in the NFL physically, I'd say Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Rodgers, Wentz, and Deshaun.
Real quick, I don't mean to cut you off, but is it fair to say that Carson Wentz physically matches up kind of well with Patrick Mahomes? Physically.
I mean, there's no weakness to him physically, right? He's athletic, he's strong.
He's not less mobile than Murray. He doesn't have his arm isn't less strong than Mahomes. I mean, they kind of
it's not as strong, and he can't make all the wacky throws Mahomes.
He's not Mahomes, but he's not far off either. Right. He's just on a terrible team. You put him on the Chiefs.
Right. He's really talented, right? We can all agree that he's super duper talented.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Also, Josh Allen, I forgot to mention when we're talking about physical freak.
But he's injury prone. Yeah, that's true. Although he's healthy now.
I don't know. Actually, I think the injury prone, I mean, he played 16 games last year. Yeah. He's playing through this year, and he played 14. He played 16 his rookie year, and he played 14. If you want to
honestly, that's true.
17 starting quarterbacks. I think Carson Wentz has played 20.
Nah, he's only missed 7 games in 5 years.
Yeah, that's not he had injuries in college. It's not as bad as people make it out to be, is what I'm trying to say.
True.
And so he's the money doesn't make this work at all. People are already jumping on that. That's absolutely true. This is like
in what sense does it not work? I'm looking up his cap details right now, and similar to Matt Ryan, the reason his cap number is so big in Philly is because he had a $50 million signing bonus that is prorated throughout yearly at about $9.2 million. The Niners wouldn't assume that. If he came to the Niners next year, his cap number would be $25 million.
So here's my question. Will Philly, is it the same thing as Matt Ryan where Philly would eat the...
Yeah, the way I look at it is if it's a post-June 1 trade, they only take $9 million in dead cap. If it's pre-June 1, they take $33.8 million in dead cap. So they'd have to get creative, but they already have Jalen Hurd. If they take someone on, they could wait until June 2nd to make the trade.
Okay. So, and I've seen a lot just on Twitter over the last few days, people saying, well, Wentz isn't much different from Jimmy. And so I'm a little all over the pace with Wentz because I do feel that there is inaccuracy in the way he throws, and there is sometimes just a lack of feel to play quarterback, and there is sometimes just, well, you have 3 just short passes open. Why are you standing in there and trying to make sure you can make the biggest play on every play? So there's all those things, but you also have to evaluate the player in the situation that they're in. And let me tell you that Doug Peterson's offense is nowhere near Kyle Shanahan's offense. It's nowhere near.
And in fact, they're kind of like philosophical opposites. And I feel the same way about Trubisky in Chicago to a lesser extent because he's not as gifted as Wentz. But Peterson and Nagy both run these dollar store knockoff Kmart versions of Andy Reid's RPO system from like 2016. And there's very little down the field throwing. There's no run game. It's all quick slants. It's all quick slants. And it's like, it's like there's no point to have a physically gifted quarterback because you're not accentuating any of his gifts, not his legs, not his strong arm, nothing. That's why a guy like Chase Daniel or like Nick Foles comes in and can do well because he's not gifted anyway. He's just throwing little 8-yard passes. Right. If you put Carson Wentz or to a lesser extent Mitchell Trubisky in an offense where they get to line up under center, take deep drops and throw down the field, now you're talking. Now you're playing to their strengths.
Yeah, but with Trubisky, I just don't think he's accurate.
Yeah, forget Trubisky. Yeah, I'm just saying. They ruined him in Chicago. Yeah.
I think Wentz, with Wentz, I think we've all seen a point at some point in his career where there's something really special. It's just about being able to harness it. And I believe that Kyle Shanahan, if in the right situation, right, let's say that, because there's way too many variables to even say that Carson Wentz is a real possibility for the 49ers. A lot has to happen because, Wentz might be able to just turn it around and pull off the run he pulled off last year. Their schedule isn't fairly hard. And if they're back in the playoffs again, then people will just say, well, and I'm sure the Eagles would just keep Carson Wentz for another year because technically he did his job, right? But I just think there's enough physical ability and stuff like that there where I think Kyle Shanahan would have a ton of success with him. And
I think he'd love to have him. Love to have him. And if the Niners are in a position where they're picking 15th and their choice is to draft Kyle Trask or trade the pick for not Nick Foles, for Carson Wentz, what would you do?
Of course, Carson Wentz.
Carson, it's a no-brainer. I mean, although I am team take the young cheap quarterback, it's Carson Wentz.
I'm team take the most talented quarterback.
Yeah. Gold-blooded says best ability is availability, and Wentz and Jimmy are rarely available. They do have that in common. They're different in a lot of ways, but there are some similarities between Jimmy and Carson Wentz.
I'm going to pull it up right now. I don't think Carson Wentz has missed that many starts in his career. Right?
No, I think the similarities between them are the decision making. And I think I would say the same thing with a guy like Deshaun Watson and even Nick Mullens. Like they need to know when to like give up on a play and not make bad plays worse. I would see that from them. Okay. But otherwise, one guy is physically gifted and the other one is a late second round pick for a reason.
Carson Wentz has missed 8 starts in his career. 8.
Oh, he missed one. He missed a couple this year?
No, he missed 3 the ACL year, and he missed 5 the years back came out. And
I really added 3 and 5 and got 7 about 5 years ago.
And Foles took them to the playoffs, right? So he's only missed 8 starts in his career. He had the playoff injury, which was pretty ugly hit from Jadeveon Clowney. So he's had injuries in moments, and he had injuries in college. But this isn't a guy who's missed so many games in his career. And also going back to your point, I do think there is a little bit of that to Watson, but I think Watson just has this magical feel to play quarterback. He's so special. To me, he's a different class of player. But with Wentz and Jimmy, what I will say is that Wentz is also operating in different circumstances than Jimmy, right? There isn't a player schemed up wide open every other play. He doesn't have a lot of open wide receivers, nor a lot of very good wide receivers. I think that people need to try and evaluate Wentz in and of himself, because comparing him, Jimmy Garoppolo is right now driving a Ferrari, and you're saying he's going as fast as Carson Wentz, who's driving a Toyota Corolla.
Thank you.
Those two
like things, a 1993 Toyota Corolla with like 200,000 miles.
So those two things aren't equal. Does Wentz have his own set of problems? Absolutely. He has his own set of problems. Absolutely. But to compare his decision-making to Jimmy with the way their offense is, Wentz played behind an elite offensive line, yes, but that offensive line, like Brandon Brooks has been hurt. Lane Johnson's body's breaking down. Peters hasn't been the same. Only Kelsey's been consistent with that O-line. It's not the same.
And Kelsey isn't young.
Yeah. So it's the line play hasn't been great, and I think the
no run game there.
That's all I'm trying to say. The scheme.
There's no run game. His scheme stinks, dude. I can't stand it. He's a good player. If you put him on the Bills right now and took Josh Allen off it, they'd be the same team. If you put him on the Chiefs right now, they'd be really freaking good. The fact that the Eagles are going to do this is comical. They're going to make a big mistake. Now, maybe people look at the Niners the same way with Jimmy Garoppolo, but Carson Wentz is on a whole different level. Carson Wentz would have won the MVP in 2017 had he not hurt his knee, and probably should have won it anyway. Jimmy's never going to be on that level. Sorry, Jimmy.
For me, Carson Wentz is the type of talent that he has to get every single chance because he's that talented, right? So he's the guy you give a chance to every single year.
Is that really Eric Davis?
Yeah, the 49ers win the Super Bowl next
season. Is that really
Absolutely.
Eric Davis?
First of all, ED, big fan.
Hey! Thanks
Second
for watching,
of all,
man.
Absolutely they win the Super Bowl next season.
I disrespected him so hard in the offseason inadvertently. I was trying to make the point that the Niners needed to draft a cornerback, and I was saying the Niners haven't had like a Pro Bowl corner since Dion. And like within 45 minutes, Eric Davis was like, excuse me. I was like, oh, I got to go back and look at his stat. Oh, yeah, he had some years in 95. And sorry, Eric, I was 7. My bad. You're the man. Thank you for watching.
My dad, so one of the first games my dad showed me, so he used to tape all the Niners games. Real quick story about Eric Davis. One of the first games he showed it to me too after, if you remember the Tremaine Brock pick six, Matt Schaub's third straight pick six, when they won the game where Catholic was 7 for 15. He reminded me, because when I was like 5 or 6 years old, he used to show me the Niners Cowboys NFC Championship game in '94 on tape, and he would always tell me how happy he was when Eric Davis picked off the pass at the beginning of the game and all of that. So,
all right, well, I'm starstruck. Okay, were we talking? Should we? Okay, that's enough of Wentz. Do we have anything else you want to say about Wentz, or should we talk about the offensive line? Because any quarterback they bring into this team is going to have to deal with Tom Compton. What are we talking here?
So the way I think about this offensive line is that I think also a little bit of onus needs to be put on the quarterbacks. They have quarterbacks, especially Jimmy this year. Like last year, I think the offensive line play wasn't good either. I just think Jimmy was better at manipulating the pocket. The pocket presence on this team is awful. These guys don't move well within the pocket at all. Like very rarely can they overcome an offensive line error where they can make a guy miss and keep the play alive. Yeah, even Brady, right? The thing with Brady is he's not athletic, right? But he kind of wiggles in the pocket right, wiggles left, stays in throwing position. And now there's 3 guys around him, but he's kind of got a spot, and he throws the ball out there because he's in throwing positions, and he's
been doing it for 20 years. He's great. Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that the pocket presence has been really poor from the quarterbacks. Like, I think you can't put everything on the O-line, and I think a little bit of athleticism at quarterback would help a lot. Because I don't think O-line play is good in the NFL at all, okay? It's not good. Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, the two rookies everybody's praising, their O-line stink.
Look at the Saints. No team has really put more resources into their O-line than New Orleans, and the Niners kind of whooped them yesterday.
Yes, backup players were whooping that offensive line yesterday, and they have 2 all-pro tackles and all-pro and a Pro Bowl type interior O-line, right? It's as good as it gets, and they got whooped. So O-line play is not going to be good in the NFL. It's just not. You need a guy to make plays and move around. So I absolutely think that the biggest thing for the Niners is get a quarterback who can move a little bit, who can make a guy miss and keep plays alive.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, true. Right on. It's true. Right.
And the thing about Carson Wentz,
he's supporting my earlier point, right? It goes back. You need to get a quarterback who can be on the level or can look eye to eye on any given game with Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, right?
And Carson Wentz can. Carson Wentz absolutely can. And the other thing about Carson Wentz, he can move. I saw him do it against the Niners. Like Eric Armstead couldn't contain him in the pocket, and Eric Armstead isn't a stiff. He made Eric Armstead look like he wasn't on the field. So yeah, Carson Wentz can do that. He would be so good on this offense. There's no question. So good.
People are saying they would take Jimmy over Goff. I mean, I'd take 2019 Jimmy over 2019 Goff, but I'm probably taking 2020 Goff over 2020 Jimmy. But to me, they're both just not cutting it. Like if we were all just like replaced, like all the conversations we have Jimmy and we were all Rams people, we could have the same exact conversations about Jimmy that we could have those same exact conversations about Jimmy, about Goff. So it's not saying much.
Real quick, before we finish with the offensive line, I want to ask you, do you go into, if you're the general manager of this team, do you go into the offseason saying, I got to make XYZ change on the offensive line, or just say, run it back, bring back Weston Richburg, hopefully Daniel Brunskill improves? What do you do here?
Okay, so Weston Richburg, can you really rely on that?
No!
Like the patella, I remember reading about it. Can it be career threatening? Someone confirmed this. I'm pretty sure the patella is very, very serious. Like it's worse than an ACL.
Yes. Okay, so Tom Compton is not an option. So Weston Richburg could be toast.
So Laken Tomlinson is fine. I think that maybe you get Alex Mack and you do what the Rams did with catching lightning in a bottle with the 2 35-year-olds in Sullivan and Whitworth, and you get Alex Mack for a couple of years. That would be a Band-Aid.
That'd be great.
And then I think the best option is, again, you spend another 4th, 5th round pick on an interior guy, and you just try to have him, Brunskill, McKivitz kind of duke it out and battle, and you rely on your superior coaching. You're not going to be able to draft Larry Allen. I don't think they'll ever invest to pick a guard like Larry Allen or Quentin Nelson. But if you can get serviceable play, which they haven't been getting, I think they'll be totally fine.
Yeah, they need to get serviceable. Maybe Colton McKivitz can be that down the line. I think they have hope for Daniel Brunskill at center if he gets more. I don't know. It just seems like if they get Carson Wentz, fine, you can roll with this offensive line. But if you bring in someone like Kyle Trask or Mac Jones or bring back, God forbid, Jimmy Garoppolo, you got to improve this offense. It's not good enough. Jimmy can't survive behind this offensive line and shouldn't even probably be expected to. Unless you're – okay, hold on. Can you talk about these new injuries? Mullens, Hasty, McKinnon. Do y'all think if Mullens ain't ready in 2 weeks? Oh, Mullens will be fine. Who starts, Josh Johnson or CJ? Josh Johnson ain't playing. Is Josh Johnson getting on the field?
There's no way. How could he learn the system enough to play and protect himself and do a decent job? And then who starts at RB if he ain't ready? I thought Austin Walters looked explosive in the time.
I liked him. He ran hard. He got yards after contact.
He's got the freshest legs on the team. So absolutely, I think it would be Austin Walter. And I don't think he would be given the scheme and given that he seems to run fearlessly with explosion, I think he'd be fine.
Also, I'd like to see Kyle Shanahan do a little extracurricular activity, dust off the Bill Walsh install tapes from the 80s and find some ways to hand the ball off to his fullback. Because Bill Walsh had a million ways to hand off the ball to Tom Rathman. Kyle Juszczyk is every bit the athlete Tom Rathman was. Can you get him the ball? Why not? He got one carry against the Saints and averaged and gained 5 yards. I don't know. I mean, there's no rule against handing off to your fullback, and Bill Walsh did it if it worked for him. Let's talk about Who should we talk about? Should we talk about Shanny or should we talk about Saleh?
Let's talk Saleh first.
Let's talk Saleh.
So my biggest takeaway from that game was that I think the guy's gotten a lot of flack, but that was his shining moment right there. And it sucks that it came in the 27-10 game. That defense played outstanding. First of all, they played out of their mind hard. Whether you want to talk about how hard Jimmy Ward played and Javon Kinlaw, how hard he played, and DJ Jones and Fred Warner, everybody played so hard, right? That's just one thing.
And beyond that, they freaking executed. They didn't just give good effort. They did everything right.
And the game plan was right on, right? Like Alvin Kamara had 3 touchdowns, but they weren't like Alvin Kamara just dominating the game, right? He got 3 touchdowns because of sudden change and the defense was put in a horrible spot and Sean Payton schemed up a good play. But overall, the game plan was amazing. They played incredible. I mean, they shut down Can't Guard Mike. They did a great job on Emmanuel Sanders. They did a phenomenal job on Jared Cook. They did an excellent job on Kamara. They dominated the line of scrimmage, right? The first thing we talked on the phone on Saturday, right? And I told you this game is real simple. You got to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. Wow. And somehow this defensive line against that offensive line won the line of scrimmage. Javon Kinlaw played outstanding. And I thought the whole defensive game plan, everything, top to bottom, was phenomenal. It's unfortunate that special teams turnovers from the offense and stuff really hurt because this to me was Robert Saleh's shining moment, especially after what happened last year. For him to come out there and for their defense to do that and knock Drew Brees out of the game and do that to Sean Payton in the dome, like that was special stuff.
It shows the growth of Robert Saleh. Not that he wasn't good last year, but in coordinator years, he's still a baby. He's in year 4. He had a good year last year. He grew a bunch, but he went to New Orleans and got destroyed. He had excuses, but he also had D Ford. Not really. He also had Nick Bosa.
It was Nick Bosa.
He had
Nick Bosa was really the difference in that game, right? Like they got into 3rd and 19, and they had a swing pass to Alvin Kamara that would have been set up to get 10 yards and put them in Will Lutz range, and Nick Bosa knocked it down. And then they had 3rd and 2 with Taysom Hill, where he absolutely whooped Ryan Ramczyk and tackled Taysom Hill for a 4-yard loss. And those 2 plays were really the 2 stops because they weren't stopping that offense at all. Those were kind of the 2 stops that really won them that football game because that was a one-stop football game.
Right, and that's my point. Like, the Niners had a more talented defense in that game, but their game plan was awful. And Robert Saleh got straight up schooled by Sean Payton, there's no shame in that. A lot of people have gotten schooled by Sean Payton. But just 1 year later, look what Robert Saleh's doing. I mean, with no edge rush, he shuts down the Saints. That's remarkable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it should have been his shining moment. Quick digression. Is there a place on this defense for Richard Sherman? We've talked about it before. Do you put him back in?
Yeah.
You just take out Mosley? Okay.
I mean, to me right now, it's not that I think, Richard Sherman is significantly better than Mosley and all of that, but I think what happens is when you go out a long time, people kind of lose sight of what you were.
Yeah.
And to me, Richard Sherman, he's still a good player. He's still really smart. And there's still certain things that they need players to do that he can do. And the number one thing is that he takes away the football. And
yeah, you're right. Well, let me say real quick, one way that I'm trying to make the case for it. And what they're doing this year is the boundary field thing with the corner. And they're putting Jason Verrett in the field and Emmanuel Mosley on the boundary, which means that teams are really picking on Mosley because those are shorter throws. Right. You're putting your best corner furthest from the action. So now if Sherman comes back, you put Sherman out in the field you bring Verrett to the boundary, and now you can't just get eaten alive on those quick throws up the sideline.
And putting Sherman on the field, they've talked about it. It gives him more opportunity to see and diagnose what's going on, so he can take more chances and jump things and make more plays on the football, which I think will help them a lot. Because people, whether field or boundary, people don't really throw at Richard Sherman because you can beat Richard Sherman 4 times, but you're so scared that he's going to pick you the 5th time because he's that smart. Yeah. So I think all those things. I mean, for the most part, they're a cover 4 quarters, split safety, 4 high coverage team, 4 deep coverage team on first down. They're not really cover 3, and I think Sherman can do that, especially because I think there's no corner in NFL, not NFL history, but I don't think there's many corners that use the sideline better than Richard Sherman and his body and weight, the way he positions himself between the sideline. So it's really tough to beat him on go balls and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Richard Sherman, I think he'll still be a contributor to this defense, and people need to slow down the roll.
Fair enough. Great. It's always good to get a Hall of Fame cornerback back in the fold. Let me ask you one more question about the defense before we talk about Shanahan. Javon Kinlaw. I mean, the bar is very high for him because he's a first-round pick and he wears DeForest Buckner's number. He hasn't had a great rookie season, but he played really freaking well against the Saints. And in my opinion, he was the best player on the Niners defense in that particular game. Is that an overreaction?
No. I think the overreaction has been that somehow Javon Kinlaw has been a bad player this season. He's
not a bad player.
Javon Kinlaw is very, very good in run defense. He's really stout. He's really strong. He gets
so athletic.
His problem is that he's raw. He doesn't finish plays yet. He's not the most refined player technically. And all these things are going to improve. All these things are going to improve. That's why Chris Kasarik is paid. The expectation that Javon Kinlaw was going to walk out and be better than DeForest Buckner is just delusion. But Javon Kinlaw 2 years from now at his contract might be more valuable than DeForest Buckner at his contract. So that's the way you have to look at it. Javon Kinlaw is a really good player, in my opinion, at playing the run. I think he's actually better than Buckner. I think he eats double teams. He's really strong. I think also the biggest problem is 2 things. One, he's never going to be as fluid with his hands and stuff as DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner is like 295 pounds. Javon Kinlaw is 330 pounds. So that expectation, just throw it out the window. It's never going to be like that. He's a different player. 2, playing snap in and snap out, right? And I think the reason that Kinlaw does, we do see games where he disappears and stuff, or disappears when he's still playing good game against the run and stuff, is because he's 330 pounds. He tires.
Yes.
You're not going to find men 330 pounds that play that many snaps and all of that. So I think people need to slow their roll. I think the criticism of Javon Kinlaw has been very unfair. I think he's getting better. He's been getting better. He's going to keep getting better. And I think he's going to be great, or not great, or at least very good.
Yeah. I mean, I like his athleticism a lot. He's very fluid. He's strong. I compared him to Eric Armstead coming out real quick, then we'll get to this question. Armstead, they're both very powerful and raw. But what Kinlaw has that Armstead doesn't have is a motor.
His motor is unreal.
Armstead had it last year, but I think we know why. He doesn't have it this year. He didn't have it before. Kinlaw sprints to the ball down the field. Now, he can't play every snap, but when he's on the field, he plays through the whistle. I really respect that because that's how Buckner played as well.
For me, actually, I think one of his issues is that sometimes he plays too hard, and sometimes he's so overzealous to just knock the guy out in front of him, where he hits the guy so hard that he knocks himself off balance because he's a little high, and so he knocks himself off balance because he hits the guy so hard.
Right.
And those are all things that are going to come with reps. He's so young. He's really physically talented. Will he ever be as good as DeForest Buckner? I don't know. I mean, you could it'd be conservative and smart to say probably not, because DeForest Buckner is a very good player. But again, if you can approximate his value 3 years from now at his contract to DeForest Buckner's contract, I think you could say he's the more valuable player, money-wise.
Well, it was quite promising to see him take over a game. I didn't expect that. I've been waiting for Eric Armstead to do that this year, and it was Kinlaw. So that was great. I did not expect that. Let's get to Shanahan.
You want to answer this one real quick?
Which one? This one. My bad. Only asked this twice already, but do you think the Niners will give Bosa $30 million a year when his contract is up? Joey got $27 million. Bosa, Warner are the backbone of the defense. Vish, what do you think?
I have no clue. There's too many variables before we get there. He's played one season.
Yeah.
He got hurt his second season. Did he show he's a superstar his first season? Absolutely. But we need to give him some more time we need to figure it out. But I do think that his contract is going to be massive if he does play through his rookie season and gets to year 4.
Yeah, if he just bounces back and plays at the same level he plays before, no one's going to care. But I am curious to see what he looks like after this one, because now this is the second ACL tear. It's 2 different legs, so still curious. Curious. Let's talk Shanahan. A lot of people, I think, are starting to be a little down on him. They're a little frustrated. They see how well Robert Saleh is doing with a shorthanded defense, and they look at Shanahan and say, "We have very high standards for you. You're the best. Your offense should be holding up the bargain with the defense." And one of my guys on all 49ers, Nick Newman, who's fantastic, just went after the Niners last night mercilessly. And then on 95.7 locally, 2 of my friends, Bonte Hill and Butcher Boy Joe Shasky, just reamed Kyle Shanahan. And normally, I'm the head of that brigade. I've been criticizing Kyle Shanahan since before that was even popular. But I kind of give him a pass for what's been going on recently. I do have high expectations after the bye, but I don't see today as the day to go after Kyle. I still have a high opinion of him. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. I don't understand why people are going after him. First of all, there's a difference between the amount of talent that Robert Saleh has still than the amount of talent Kyle Shanahan has. I think people need to that's a fact, right? This Niners regime has invested a lot more into their defense than they have into their offense, whether it be draft capital, money, all these kinds of things, right? So that's one fact. In my opinion, it is a fact. I mean,
I don't know if it's a fact. I think it's debatable. I think
we can go down the picks. I mean, if you start from even Balky in 2015, because they've kept a lot of those first round picks, right? Whether it's Armstead, Jaquiski Tartt, excuse me.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ward.
Better get that right.
Yeah. DeForest Buckner, all these guys, right? They've kept these guys, and they're operating with Kerry Hyder, who's had an 8.5 sack season. I mean, Javon Kinlaw was the 14th overall pick. DJ Jones is going to get signed for a pretty big contract somewhere. Fred Warner, I think the thing with Robert Saleh is that I think this defense would be totally different if Fred Warner wasn't playing, right? So if you lost Fred Warner and Bosa, which to me it's like Kyle losing Kittle and Debo, then you would see a totally different defense. But this is a team, right? Why would we want to evaluate Kyle versus Saleh?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. They're
right. That's moot. Yeah. It's moot.
Yeah.
They try to play team football.
Yeah.
So when we're talking just Kyle Shanahan, I just don't understand when everybody just is like, oh, he stinks. That 4th and 1 play call, he should have called X, Y, Z. He should have done this, blah, blah, blah. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. All right, I saw the play call. I saw that it didn't work. Now I'll tell you what will work. That's
now, not. Look, hold on. No, you're right. You're right. But in my defense, I'm the best football analyst in the world. And in my defense, thanks. On the second one, where they went 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, it's on Twitter. After the 3rd and 1, I said Juszczyk wasn't even on the field for that. You know what I would have said. I think it's fair to say
that you're not criticizing the play call, right?
No,
you're criticizing the personnel. You're asking.
Well, I'm also saying on 4th and 1, I would have called an inside trap for Juszczyk instead of a shotgun run for McKinnon. But again, those are minor quibbles. Right. And I feel like with an excellent coach like Kyle Shanahan, you can go to the minor quibble level because he's beyond other things. He's so good.
Get into the nuance of execution, right?
Yeah.
Was this call the right call? And did these 2 guys block correctly? Did McPivots block that play correctly? So there's too much nuance for me to get into individual play calls. What you can say is
crush Kyle because of one call in one game. It's like, wait, let's step back.
Yeah.
Let's step back. He's still a coach who maximizes the talent he has. And in this game, I don't see what game plan he could have put together that would have got them more than.
Well, the game plan was right on, right? The idea was perfect.
But they didn't have the running backs to execute it.
Right. He just wanted the entire game plan was hold the football and get to 3rd and short. That was the game plan. And they executed that game plan for about a quarter and a half.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
Then some turnovers happened, some things happened, and the limits of their offense were very much revealed. I don't know why. Like, I don't know what the expectation is. Like, did you not watch the Saints last week? Like,
Yeah.
I think we all agree that Todd Bowles is one of the best D coordinators in the NFL. And yeah, they lost Vita Vea, which is starting to really hurt them as a
Yeah.
defense. And their defense with Carlton Davis is playing kind of hurt and all of those things. But they're a good defense, and the Saints should have scored on every single possession last week. They were a Jared Cook fumble and a Jared Cook drop away from scoring on every single possession.
Yep.
For a touchdown. So did you not see what this offense can do and what this team, how good this team is? And did you really expect a JV squad to go and walk into that building and give them all they could handle? The Niners played hard. They played great football. It was a much closer game than 27-10, right? It was much closer.
I mean, the special teams turned the game. Nick Mullens' interceptions were bad too, but they happened in the second half when they were already down 2-3 scores.
The first one was rough. The second one
was rough.
Yeah,
it was definitely rough. But that game was getting away from them at that point anyway. They weren't going to win that game. They were undermanned, and I was surprised they had the talent to pull off, to execute that defensive game plan, but they just didn't have it on offense. If they'd had Savon Ahmed at running back, God knows what could have happened. But when your only running back that you trust is averaging 1.8 yards per carry, it's just tough. What are you going to do?
And they were selling out, right? They were selling out. It's the game plan that I talked about earlier, right? They were selling out they were blitzing everywhere to sell out, to stop this run game and stop this. And they wanted to put the game in Nick Mullens' hands. And Kyle wasn't willing to put it in Nick Mullens' hands. He didn't want to expose him like that with this offensive line. And
you shouldn't.
So,
you got to be careful with Nick Mullens. It's not
right. Everything Carson Wentz. Like, he had the right idea and the right plan. They just couldn't execute it.
Franco Gomez says, stay the QB position we're in, fire Saleh and trade positions, Tart, CJ, Beathard, Tevin, Garland, and more, build O-line, and look at next year's draft for QBs. I just don't think the Niners are looking at tanking or fire sailing. I think they're thinking they're still a premier team and franchise that's had injuries, and if they get healthy again, they're going to go on a run because they have the best coaching staff in the NFC. That's how they think.
Yeah, I don't think they
can win games with a JV squad. They've done it this year.
So, my man Eric says 4th and 1, let the Saints off the hook. And I do think there is something to that, right? Like, it was a big momentum shift in the game, but the football
4th and 1, let the Saints off the hook.
Yeah. But I just think there's too much nuance of what could have happened, right? Like, they did play 45 to 50 minutes of football. And the Niners, maybe, I do agree with him that maybe getting that 4th and 1 would have been the biggest momentum shift just because they were so undermanned to begin with. But I don't know.
I agree with Eric. It was not a good call on 4th and 1. And Kyle Shanahan needs to own that. But I'm not saying that my opinion of him drastically changes because of those couple of calls in the game. Those weren't good calls. And Saleh outperformed him yesterday. And you should have went for it on the first 4th and 1. He didn't go for it. The second one, he had a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1. Juszczyk wasn't on the field for either play and didn't get the ball. You have a play action rollout and then a handoff to McKinnon.
Well, if he
I think you can do better than that.
It's Ayuk on 3rd and 1 instead of throwing the ball at his shoes. Maybe they get it on 3rd and 1. Who knows?
True.
So there's nuance.
The Saints were blitzing to make Mullens react quickly.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the right thing to do against Mullens or anyone.
Again, this is not something new, and this is probably going to be something we're going to see every single game moving forward, where teams are just going to blitz. They're not scared. They're going to blitz the heck out of the 49ers.
Yes, and they were doing that to Jimmy Garoppolo too.
Right. Right. I mean, the Vikings put the initial game plan with Jimmy Garoppolo out there. Well, if we totally take away the middle of the field and we say, we'll put our corners and make you throw the ball down the field and outside, can you do it? And then the Chiefs really put a stamp on it in the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl, where they really were putting everybody in the middle of the field and blitzing him, and he can't really throw the ball down the field and outside.
Real quick, I think it's time for us to wrap it up soon, but I'd like to say, Eric, thank you so much for watching the whole show. I'm really touched. And
me too.
If you don't mind, would you like to come on with Vish and us sometime? If you're free next Monday, we'd love to have you. Any Monday, we are extending our invitation to you. Think about it. We'd love to have you, and we'll give you easy questions, Eric. We're not going to grill you. Vish is a very nice guy. So think about it. All right, cool. I'll DM you. I appreciate you. Hey, thanks, Eric.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'll DM you after this. Grant, what about the gimme roughing the passer? God,
yeah, it was horrible. It was awful. It was as bad as it gets.
So bad. I really feel bad for that defense because it was a legendary performance what they did. And no one will remember it because they gave up 27 points. They had these 3 turnovers that weren't their fault and that ridiculous roughing the passer penalty. The one thing that they need to work on to become an elite defense is like they call it sudden change situations. The Niners aren't particularly great at those. When they're expecting to be on the bench for a while and watch the offense lead a drive and then there's a turnover and they're on the field. It seems like it takes them a minute to like realize the situation they're in. What, Vish? What'd you see?
Breeze has multiple rib fractures and a collapsed lung.
Word?
Whoa.
Really? My goodness.
Dang, wow. I didn't think Street hit him like that.
Collapsed lung?
Yeah, that sounds career ending.
Jeez. Oh my God.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to your point about the defense, though, as shocking as it is.
Whoa, Contavious Street.
Yeah, I don't worry about the sudden change. I think when you bring back Nick Bosa and you bring back whoever's on the other side of him, whatever you use to spend D Ford's money on, or whether it's D Ford, I think all those things will improve, right? Because
I got something to say real quick though about the sudden change thing. You're right. When you get more talent, it will improve. But I think this defense is so locked in right now and so well coached. They're going to improve on that as the season goes on. It's not just, they're not going to be like, hey, what do you want? Like they're going to make that a point of emphasis and this defense is not messing around. And I don't really know where Kyle Shanahan's head is at from week to week, but I know that Robert Saleh is coaching for a head coaching job and is not going to take a single day off. That defense is going to be locked in the rest of the year.
True. Absolutely. And with Kyle and with the offense, right, it is an offensive thing too. Like, don't put the defense in sudden change situations.
Yeah, that's the best solution for that one. Last, I have a question real quick before we go on. If Saleh gets a job, we've talked about this before, but now we're in week 11 and we're starting to see what would be the perfect place for him, do you think? I have a franchise in mind, and it's real close to where you live. And I don't know if they're going to be fighting.
I know what you're going to say. I was thinking the same thing because he's from the area.
And it's a defensive franchise in a way that only Pittsburgh and Baltimore and maybe Seattle are. Like every franchise wants to be flashy offense first, except for Chicago. So, I mean, he would fit the identity of what they've been.
Yeah, and they do have a Super Bowl caliber defense there.
Exactly.
I feel bad. The defense is very, very.
What's the point of keeping Matt Nagy? He's an offensive guru whose offense ranks 30th this year.
I like that.
I like that. Chicago.
He's also a Midwest guy. I like it.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know if Nagy would get fired though. For me, the way I read it is that Nagy. I think they believe more in Nagy than they believe in the GM. So I think I think the move this season might be move the GM and give Nagy one more shot. I don't know.
Boy, Vic Fangio really got Matt Nagy like 9 lives. To me, Matt Nagy's never done anything particularly good, but he rode the coattails of Andy Reid and then Vic Fangio, and now gets to keep his job for a 4th year?
Yeah, well, I mean, he is a coach of the year. Kyle Shanahan isn't a coach of the year.
Really? He was the coach of the year? 2017? My God. I didn't vote for that.
I mean, a lot of people, from what I understand, just listening to people who actually know and stuff, talk about the league and stuff, they seem to act like Nagy is very respected. Why? I don't understand. But
so it's all his players' fault. I don't know. He had a top 3 pick and ruined him. That's the way I look at it.
He wasn't the right pick at 2nd overall, so
he couldn't get anything out of him. Well,
but the offense, right? But now that you can't blame that guy, and the offense is still pathetic, and it's not to completely.
I'm saying, man,
it's the worst offense. I mean, one of the biggest. I mean, I'm gonna go on a little Bears rant here. One of the worst parts of my Sundays is that I have to actually stream the good games because when I turn on the TV, I have to watch that pathetic excuse of an offense from 12 to 3 every Sunday. They're just on, and you know how bad it is to watch that offense. Like it's awful. It's awful.
Yes. And that's how they always are. And that's the coach is an offensive coach. They should fire Matt Nagy.
Yeah, never had a quarterback in their existence. But yeah.
All right, and then bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Bingo. Robert Saleh, me as the offensive coordinator, Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback. I think we can.
Don't you think just being the offensive coordinator would limit your skill set?
It's true. I can't really pigeonhole myself like that. I'm a triple threat.
All right, one of my friends here, Fran Lopez, is asking, what do you think about just going after Rodgers in the offseason?
Is he available?
I mean, I would love that. Who wouldn't love to go after Aaron Rodgers? But I don't think he's going to be an option.
Nah, that was probably more realistic last year. Yeah. All right, man. It's lunchtime for me. I got to get out of here and go help my dad scan some documents because scanning is difficult.
Real quick before we go, guys, the YouTube link is in the description. Please subscribe if you do get a chance and check us out. We'll be going live this Wednesday, both to YouTube and to my Twitter. So follow me on Twitter at Vish Kumaran. And then also this Friday, again, we have a special guest coming on. Prominent 49ers player will be coming on. And if you would like to check it out, please do. We'll be going live on Friday on both Twitter and on YouTube.
And next Monday, Eric Davis said he's coming on. So we're holding you to that, Eric. Watch next Monday, Eric Davis, Niners legend. Friday on Vish's channel, special guest. Check it out. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you.